we can bring in Benjamin Jensen, Senior Fellow for Future War, Gaming and Strategy in the International Security Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24 today. Last week, we had Israeli magazine 972 that broke the story on the IDF using artificial intelligence to identify some 37,000 Hamas targets. Based on what we know from that story, what criteria does the system known as Lavender use?
So first, thank you for having me and covering this important issue. What we know, and it's still initial reporting, is that Lavender uses a mix of imagery recognition and statistical analysis to analyze patterns of association. So think about this like an old detective movie where someone's constantly asking questions, but it's a machine asking questions and seeing if an image is similar to what an expected value is, and if that image of that suspected person has other associations. Now, the challenge with this is that can lead to high error rates and false positives on relationships. It means that anyone who has an image that looks similar to a Hamas fighters, and that can be very difficult to capture in a battle zone, is automatically assumed to be part of Hamas and therefore part of a targeting enterprise.
Do we have examples of how Lavender is being used in Gaza?
So, at least from the initial reporting, especially the 972 article, what it sounds like is that there was a tremendous investment up front by Israel to catalog using facial recognition and other means images of Hamas fighters. So, this is something that's been done across war zones for some time now. It's called biometric intelligence. So, you can analyze very close in someone's face. So, both France and the United States have done that in Africa and the Middle East to ensure the security of their bases. But it looks like Lavender was taking that a step further and using everything from closed caption TV to aerial images and then cross-correlating that with data sets about known associations. So seeing wire diagrams, again, like an old detective movie of who's associated with who. And the combination of the two was giving confidence levels for commanders to authorize strikes. So I think what's different now is it looks like Lavender was trying to automate, or as a process was automating the traditional targeting process that's been used for some time.
You spoke about patterns of association. So, what patterns of association are being used to identify who
Yeah.
could potentially be a Hamas operative or associated to
So
one?
I'll speak to this more as my experience. I've served over 20 years in the U.S. military and intelligence and multiple combat deployments to Afghanistan and the Middle East. When I say that, the usual technique is you build a targeting packet for someone that you're pursuing, a suspect, someone of interest, and that targeting packet will usually list known associations or suspected associations. And this becomes really important because what's your confidence level for the suspected association, especially in a specific cultural context where it's a highly populated, dense area where family ties run so deep? Because you and I have meals together, does that mean you're part of Hamas or just my cousin? So, one thing I would be concerned with here would be the model's test and evaluation standards to analyze the confidence level in that two people or a group of people are associated, at least from the outside looking in, which is always, you got to be careful doing that. It looks like there may have been a high number of error rates that led to an excessive amount of collateral damage. And that's definitely the implication from the 972 article.
I want to talk about collateral damage because you have said you've served before in the United
Yes.
States Army. What is suitable collateral damage? Because from what we understand, the vast majority of the over 33,000 Palestinians who have been killed are
Yeah.
women and children. So one would assume that there's an awful lot of collateral damage.
Yeah, the first, I think what you're seeing play out is the utter myth of precision war. And the only truth in war is there will be tragedy. So based upon my combat experience, there is the acceptable level of collateral damage is zero. And commanders make a very difficult call. And this is true in the United States and France. I suspect it was true before they automated part of the system in Israel. You have a targeting process that will involve an intelligence officer, a targeting officer, an operations officer, and usually a lawyer And the lawyer will actually give the recommendation as well as if the strike is within the law of armed conflict. And then the commander makes the final determination. So ideally, there is no collateral damage or low collateral damage, and the commander is evaluating that versus the law of armed conflict and versus the situation on the ground. When you automate a targeting process, though, you remove some of that human judgment and you remove some of the pause. So the beauty of AI is it moves fast. The tragedy of AI is sometimes in war, you need to move slow and be deliberate if you want to preserve human life.
But it can make mistakes.
Absolutely. And I know I've been part of missions where if we were honest with ourselves and we could redo it, we would have. Again, I think sometimes we assume because you can be precise with with good circular error probability on a weapon strike, that doesn't mean it's going to impact the community. And we've seen time and time again it does. This is why war has to be the last resort. So my concerns with Lavender would be I would want to see the test and evaluation standards they use to determine the confidence of the associations, the confidence in the imagery recognition. And then I would hope after the war, they're willing to open it up and we really get to evaluate the number of cases where the commander said, no, that's too high of a collateral damage. The numbers are shocking coming out of Gaza, but Gaza is also one of the most densely populated parts of the world, and Hamas was known to use human shields. It's clear, though, from the outside, something is not going right. So whether that's the
And
air terms, whether it's human shields, I don't know.
we'll see how it pans out. And of course, the offensive for Rafah is looming. Benjamin Jensen, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.